Hi, everyone. This is Ivory Zorich, and I'm the Director of Strategy of the Live Events Coalition. The LEC is a 501c6 organization and was created to provide support and resources for the industry, as well as lobby on behalf of this group during this trying time. This session, as all of our webinars, are recorded and will be posted to our YouTube channel after each call. Now, just a few small disclaimers and housekeeping notes before we get started. Please be kind and understanding to others. We will not allow anything less than kindness. Please avoid self or company promotion on coalition webinars. We are a nonpartisan organization and ask that you respect that and all sides' opinions, even if you disagree. Please continue to support each other and our industry through this tough time. We need one another more than ever now. While the coalition members are trying to share as much information as possible, situations and information change from day to day, so keeping up can be challenging, and we appreciate your patience with us. It is the policy of the Live Events Coalition to comply in all respects with federal and state antitrust laws. Discussion of any matters relating to competition among our attendees or relating to practices that may restrain trade with third parties is not permitted. These prohibited subjects include prices, allocating territories, boycotts, or any other statements that may be construed as anti-competitive. And finally, please note that while the coalition members may offer ideas and advice, we are not legal or financial experts. Our panelists may be experts. However, the information shared may be different for your unique situation. And we advise you to reach out to your own lawyer, accountant, bankers, or business manager for expert opinions and advice. And now I'm going to turn it over to Nancy for her update from the president.
Hi, everybody. So I guess my t-shirt is appropriate. It says kindness is contagious, but I have to hold it up high. So first of all, as always, I like to start with saying thank you. Thank you for your support. Thank you for your engagement, and thank you for your strength. It's been a long 14 months. And I think that at this point, everybody is just getting a little bit stir crazy. We're more stir crazy than we were. We're watching lots of states begin to open, and then we're watching states shut right back down. Dwayne is in one of those situations. So I think that what I want to make sure is that we remain focused and we remain hopeful. This is not to say that this is an easy time for any of us. It's not. But legislation moves slowly, slower than I ever could have possibly imagined. But we are making great strides, and your government affairs team is going to bring you up to date on that. But I know that our voices have begun to be heard. We are making inroads, and we are not giving up. And we will come back and continue. Let me say this. We are back in many places, and we will continue to evolve and open up other places. But for those who are open, remember to be kind, empathetic, and compassionate to those who may not, because many different places in the world aren't open and people are still struggling, as well as those in open cities that are struggling. But we've been doing this for a long time, and we've done nothing but grow stronger, more powerful, and I think connected. So I continue to be thankful for the blessings of this pandemic, which sounds insane, but I wouldn't know any of you. I wouldn't know these people that I work with on the board on a daily basis, who I can't imagine my life without. And I can't imagine my life without our much larger industry. So thank you. You know that I am always here. If you have ideas, you have thoughts, you just need somebody to call and scream because life sucks, I'm here. That's what I'm here for. That's where I want to be. And I want you all to know that you're not alone, and that we're going to continue this fight day in and day out, long after the pandemic is over. We're in this for the long haul, guys, to make our industry stronger and better for future generations who are going to be sucked into this magical industry that we all absolutely adore. So without further ado, I believe I get to turn this over to the brilliant Government Affairs Committee, of which I'm delighted to say that we have Wendy, Dwayne, and many of you probably have not met Chris, whose last name I am not going to butcher. And they are going to bring you up to date on all things that are happening at the moment. So with no further ado, it's on the rock stars of government affairs.
Thank you, Nancy. Thanks, President Schaefer. No longer President-elect Schaefer. No, you never were that, were you? Hi, everybody. So it was interesting as we were meeting yesterday as a group and talking about, with our lobbyists and so forth, where we've gotten, where we haven't, what stalled. There was a certain amount of recognition for, let's call it frustration, not just from those of us on GA, but we're hearing from all y'all out there in events world. And it kind of bubbled to the top. And Nancy did this really well by introducing the day with kindness, and I threw into the chat a little bit about empathy. We sort of combined these two energies as we were meeting yesterday and determined, we need to talk about this with our friends and our colleagues out there in the greater world. So we're going to spend a little bit of time on that today, and it's going to come in the form of sort of a review of where we've been, where we think we're going to go, where we find ourselves now. And we want to unpack a little bit about what this experience has been and is going to continue to be, where our wins have been, what we weren't able to get done. There's both. Nancy said it really well. Government moves at a snail's pace, nothing like the pace that all of us as event professionals are used to. We all have a hard deadline. Congress does not. And so that's been the first education. And for more about that education, I'll have a few more comments in a little bit, but I want to turn it over to my esteemed colleague, Wendy, in Minnesota. Actually, I have two colleagues from Minnesota on today. That's wonderful. And Wendy's going to bring us through a little bit about what the historical situation has been for the organization, where we've won, what we've worked on, and so forth. Take it away, Wendy.
Okay, thanks, Dwayne. So a little bit of history on the Live Events Coalition. So as we all know, in March 2020, COVID hit the world, particularly the United States. And on March 13th, we all knew life was going to be different for a while. So Isaac Rothwell started a petition that day. And when he realized that we're in trouble as a live events industry, so he kicked off a petition with change.org and kind of woke up the next morning and had thousands and thousands of signatures on it. And it actually ended up with around 500,000 signatures when all was said and done. And so it kind of occurred to us that we have something here. So at that point in time, we formulated the Live Events Coalition in April of 2020, and we formalized it as a 501c6, which took a little bit of time. And we had our first letters that went out to the members of Congress about the issue and about our industry to help educate them on who we are and how big we are, and really what a crisis we were in and going to be in for quite some time. So in April of 2020, actually signed in March of 2020, as we know, Congress put out the first aid package. And of course it was a scramble, right? Because they were reacting to something that had happened just, in that month prior. There wasn't a lot of thought really around who should get this aid, who, where were the hardest hit industries. It was just get something out there. And so with that, they, put money out for EIDL loans, for PPP, and then we were able to get the PUI and UI. So pandemic unemployment assistance and unemployment insurance in place to support people that normally would not qualify for unemployment insurance. So that was sort of the first step in April of 2020. By the end of May, with work from our state chapters of the Live Events Coalition and the National Live Events Coalition, we really fought hard to get PPP edited and extended, because at the start, if you remember, it was 8 weeks, and we all knew that wasn't going to be enough. And so we were able to get it pushed out to 24 weeks of coverage instead of 8. And that happened really because of the work from the Live Events Coalition. Moving into the summer and fall, things basically were locked up, unfortunately, due to partisan issues. The House and the Senate could not get into agreement on what was needed and what the package would look like. And so really we stalled between April and honestly, into the fall. By October, we knew that we were going to be working with a lame duck session. We fought hard to get PPP extended, and again, extension of the UI and PUA, and we were successful in the fall to have that happen. But as we all know, the second package didn't pass until December of 2020. At that point, we had SVOG, which was included, which was actually co-authored by our own senator here in Minnesota, Amy Klobuchar. And SVOG, while that was certainly needed and a win, it didn't go far enough to really help our entire industry. It just helped part of our industry. So we knew we still had work to do. And then we had a new president that was inaugurated in January of 2021. And we thought, okay, well, now we have a chance, hopefully, that we can get, some legislation built out that would include more of us. And what happened there was sort of the perfect storm, where the package that was presented was actually created by Biden's transition team without any input from the US as a whole. They sort of put together what they thought the needs were, and a package got put out, and it ultimately got passed in March. And we really did not have a chance to have a lot of input into that. We were successful, and the Restaurant Act did make it into that package, which, as we all know, supports our catering segment of our industry, which is great. And we did get the ARP state funding that came out of that package, which is also good news. And so we're all now working to get some grants stood up out of that money. And then we also were able to get UI and PUA extended as well to September of 2021. So while we haven't had the full success we were hoping to have, we have had some wins. And so we just kind of wanted to go through that history for those of you who are new to the organization and maybe don't realize what has happened or transpired over the last year. And so the reflections that I want to sort of put out there is that, as Nancy said, law takes a really long time to get into place. And we need to remember that this is a marathon, not a sprint. And we have to really try to understand this process. And for all of us here in the government affairs team, none of us come out of the political arena. It's not our backgrounds. We're learning as we're going. And it's been, quite interesting over the last year to really learn how the gears of Congress and the gears of our country work to make law. Major packages really only get passed at intervals. They don't happen week by week. And so that's why it takes so much time in between. And so, you're going to hear us week by week by week saying, yeah, we're fighting, we're doing this, we're doing that. And yet you may feel like, well, gosh, nothing's happening. Well, it is happening. Things are happening behind the scenes, and we're making progress, and we're getting relationships, and we're layering our strategy together. And it is making a difference. It just, again, takes time for those packages to actually get built and then passed. So one of the things I recently did was I was reflecting back on when I was a kid, and I'm probably older than many of you, but there was a cartoon back in the day called I'm Just a Bill by Schoolhouse Rock. And it's like a 3.5-minute segment that educates kids on how law works. So I went back and I rewatched that, and it just boils it down into really simple terms to help understand why this takes so long. And so Ivory's going to post that link in the chat for you all to take a look at that. And I think it'll help kind of conceptualize the process and why this takes so long. And it's just a good reminder, I think, for all of us. And then, our first hurdle as an industry was to educate. Nobody really knew who we were, right? We are the guys in black, as we've said. We're behind the scenes, people show up to our events and it's just magic, right? And nobody really realizes what's involved in that. So that in itself, just doing the education process, took us months to do with Congress. Now, Congress now knows who we are. Our lobbyist has actually told us that we have made amazing strides compared to the amount of time it normally takes to get in front of congressional leaders and help them understand our issue. So that is, I think a really good sign and a celebration for all of us for that all the work that we have done has gotten noticed, and that, generally this takes even longer than it's taken for us. We've all heard so much about restaurants, and I know that's been frustrating. Like, why is everybody just talking about restaurants? What about us? And you're right. What about us? Well, part of that is because the National Restaurant Association has been in place since 1919. So they have had an association and a lobbying group for 102 years. We have had 1 year with us as an industry. And so we're starting from scratch. They were 100 years ahead of us. And so that's why they were getting the attention, and it took us so much longer to really get on the radar. So today, we have a really strong government affairs team in place, and we're making really great headway each week. We've had almost 40 meetings to date so far with members of Congress that are on the Small Business Committee and other key decision makers, and more happening each week. And it definitely is making a difference. So my message to you is, keep working, keep fighting, stay engaged. We can't quit this marathon now. This is a marathon and not a sprint, and we still have a lot more work to do. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Dwayne for some more comments.
Thanks, Wendy. Really well put. And I think that the historical overview is important. The marathon versus sprint thing, I know it's such a meme, but it has never been truer. And as Wendy said, none of us knew that going in. We're not poli-sci people. We don't have a political background. We're simply people who saw a need and knew that no one else was going to speak up. And we thought, well, let's speak up on our behalf. We started on the state level, we built out, and eventually many of us linked our states. Some of you are in this room to the LEC wagon. Now we're state partners or state chapters or chapters informing. And that's all net positive. And I think back to when the NRA, not the Rifle Association, but the Restaurant Association was first formed 102 years ago. I wonder how frustrating their first year was. That must have been brutal. And I imagine, what if they'd given up? But they didn't. And look what they've gotten done. Now, does that mean we're not going to get something done because we're so young? Sure as hell hope not. But that's not the way we're approaching this work. We're approaching this work like it's going to get done. We don't see ourselves failing. We see ourselves succeeding, because either view is equally possible. You get to choose. And if we go into our day thinking, this is stupid, this is a waste of time, then how do we keep doing this 60 hours a week for free? Why would we keep doing this? So our view of this is we intend to succeed. And it may not be the very measure we're working on today, but it's going to be a measure that will prop our industry up and create our lobby so that the next disaster that comes along, we are ready to pounce. We're pouncing now, but we're pouncing in such slow motion. I can't even describe how maddening it can be from day to day. Just getting a meeting is 2 weeks going in. And Chris is sitting here, our newest government affairs person. We met her because one of our senators connected us to these folks from the Consumer Show world. And we thought, I've tried to reach out to Consumer Show, and I see that they're frustrated also. These are folks who have 1 or 3 or 5 or maybe 8 or 9 events a year, all year. Most of them lost every single one of them last year. Think about the ones who do one major show. Let's say it's a home and garden show, and that's the only thing they work on all year. They lost their shot in one day, right? And it's not going to come back with partial reopening. Nothing like that's going to work. So we reached out to Chris, and what she's been great at is just finding folks like you guys in the audience who can come along with us as constituents of these various members of Congress and speak to them. And that's what she's been working on for us, just doggedly. So you can see there's a lot of moving parts here. Let me talk a little bit about the complicated story we've had to tell. It was kind of a foregone conclusion to me, because I own a lighting production house and I served lots of kinds of events, that this was all just one big thing. I had zero really contact with anybody other than maybe I was an ILEA member for a while. I was an MPI member for a while, but other than that, and those aren't lobbying groups. Other than that, I didn't really get that the vertical markets in our world, like trade show, like conferences, like the wedding world, like the fundraising and social event world, like the sports event world, are all very separate from each other. And yet my little company worked in all of them, and I didn't see any difference. I didn't see why you would separate those things. I've done home and garden shows many times. So it didn't even occur to me that these were separate things. And simultaneously, this was happening with Isaac, our founder, with Nancy, who works mainly in large corporate and social events, with Ivory, who definitely has a niche of her own, with Wendy, who has a niche of her own. This was happening at the same time. We were going, oh crap, we all have the same problem. Well, we are all the same industry, right? Well, you'd be surprised how many people don't look at it that way. This is how SVOG got done. The folks in the performing arts world looked at that as a standalone industry, even though at least half of the people who serve the performing arts world, who were not going to be able to take advantage of SVOG, also work in these other slivers. So to be sure, this is a broad industry that had probably never thought of itself as one, other than in individual cases like myself. But on a broader scope, in an organizational fashion, I don't think anybody's really tried something like this. Was it too big of a pill to swallow? I'm going to say no. I'm going to say it's necessary. And the partnerships we've created, Chris had her own lobby effort going hard in the consumer show world. And we spoke for maybe an hour, and we figured we need to be under one tent here. And Chris had not organized the way LEC had. So she traveled her whole group into our group. And now we're under one happy family. Before we sing Kumbaya, don't get me wrong, we still have work to do. I want you to be sure and understand that we are continuing that joining of existing lobbies. For instance, a lot of you are either in or work with rental folks. That's tables, chairs, linens, all of that stuff. Many or most of them are part of the American Rental Association. Good news, we're talking to them every week. Their lobbies and our lobbies are now joined at the hip. We're fighting for the right thing. We're actually almost finished with a position paper that joins us together, but it's not just there. We also have the American Society of Travel Advisors in this group and their lobbyists, and we all meet. And we have the amusement park and attractions people. We're working on about 3 other organizations like American DJ Association and a few others, again, trying to create a sort of coalition of coalitions. That will do a few things. First of all, it will get rid of the separateness to any extent that we can. I know that folks who build trade show booths are always going to look at trade show as their ecosystem. The truth of it is there's other of us who do work in trade show, but then we also turn around next week and do 3 weddings. So you can't unmarry that no matter how you try. And we're going to continue to try to get everybody under one banner. We won't get everybody under one banner. So please don't be frustrated when you see a hospitality measure being pushed for the hotel world. Listen, without hotels, we go away, and without us, they go away. At the end of the day, our conversations have become more and more, and I'm going to say this and remember this term, they've become more and more industry agnostic. The truth of it is, where we find ourselves now is that a bunch of people fell between the cracks. They fell between the cracks because they couldn't really feel like they were going to get their PPP forgiven, so they didn't take it. And they certainly didn't take a second one. We're working on a fix for that. If there's a PPP3, we're going to get that fixed somehow, some way, either because the period of time for you to use it is so long, or because the way you can use it is different. We're going to get the amount that they award you to be based on the amount of lost, if we at all possibly can. Those are the kinds of things we're working on. EIDL, not everybody wanted to take those loans. It's a 30-year saddle that you got to wear for your business. If you're a young business, you look at, oh my God, that's most of the rest of my career. If you're an old business like mine, you're like, damn, I thought I was out of here in 5 years. Now I have a 30-year loan, and I do. For SVOG, Godspeed. A bunch of people are going to get taken care of. I think it's going to run out of money really fast. And that's probably net positive because it says to Congress there's a bigger problem. For the restaurant side of things, caterers, get in there and get yours. Get it. Go get it. For the state side of things, this is the most important thing. Right now, the one thing that will happen faster than anything else is finding a way to carve out a little grant from your own state. This is where all you guys come in. We can't do that on the national level. We don't have 50 lobbying teams in 50 states that we have control over like a puppeteer. I've done it in my own state. Chris and Wendy are doing it in Minnesota. I know New York's working on it. I know Massachusetts is working on it. There are others I'm probably leaving out. But if you have questions about that, we have a petition we can share with you that you can use as a bouncing off point. We have advice on to how to talk to these folks. Again, we can't do it for you. This is going to mean you have to jump in and start yelling and screaming because they're going to decide what to do with the money that states are getting from the American Recovery Act, a relief rescue plan. Sorry. Yeah, I have act brain. They're going to decide what to do with it really quick here. So if you haven't called your governor and your representatives and your state senators and let them know there is a real need in your state's events community for further help to bridge you until more federal help can happen, now's the time. Pick up the phone, type an email, get a hold of us. We'll share what we've done with you. It's all a template. It's ready for you to build out. That's the best thing you can do right now. Please know that going forward, there will be other federal campaigns that we'll ask you to jump in on. At the moment, what we're doing is we're just taking meeting after meeting. Like Wendy said, we're right at 40 right now. Those take a minute to get. Of those 40, probably 30 of them are with the Small Business Committee. So know that that echo chamber is getting filled with our story. We just this morning launched our lobbyists are now connecting all the staffers that we're talking to each other so that they'll go and tap each other on the shoulder in the hallway and go, you talk to these LEC people, right? Oh yeah, I talked to them. Well, do you think their plan's a good idea? Yeah, I think it's a good idea. Because the more you get that teamwork going in the halls of Congress, the faster it's going to happen. So that we've graduated to that level of involvement. And that's going to continue apace for the next weeks. They're on recess. The next time we meet in 2 weeks, we will either have astonishing new news about a bill that we think may be getting text written for it right now, that we've had several conversations, we've had input on it, or because they've been on recess, we may not have much to report in terms of what's happening. I've long since stopped trying to predict how much I will be able to tell you 2 weeks from now. The important thing to know is we need you. And we need you to stay engaged, because at any time now we might go, okay, everybody, here's the zip code map. Type in your zip code to the site. Find out the phone number for your senator. Call him now. Find out the phone number for your US rep. Call him now. And I need you guys to be paying attention. The industry needs you to be paying attention to this. It isn't this minute. At this minute, like I said, go after your state if you have a minute. If you have a coalition in your state, talk to them. See how you can help. They may already be on it, and they'd be happy to find another letter writer or another person to pick up the phone. So roll up your sleeves, get busy. You don't have to work 60 hours a week at it. You can do it in about 4 hours a week, I'm glad to say, because I know a lot of people are heading back to work a little bit here. But I think we'd all agree, even though we're going to head back to work, there's no sign that this is over. I'll tell you candidly, my own state of Oregon just shut down 2 days ago. So we're back where we were on the 23rd of March last year. So we're seeing our whole summer schedule empty out, even though we don't know whether the opening is going to be in 3 weeks from now. Or these things can happen all over. If your number spikes, your governor might decide to do that. So stay nimble, stay ready to fight. That's my advice I'd give to you. We have just a few minutes left. I'm checking the clock here. I want to thank Chris and Wendy for their hard work. Chris, did you have any comments you wanted to add to your efforts, what you're doing out there, and anything that you would ask of our group here?
First of all, I just want to say thank you, and I'm just honored to be a part of the LEC. It's a phenomenal organization, so thank you for allowing me to be a part of it. As far as looking for constituents to make some of those important connections, I'm looking still for a couple out of Oklahoma. So if you know anybody in Oklahoma, give us a shout. I'm looking for a couple in Illinois, specifically in District 3 with Representative Newman. And I'm looking for one more constituent out of Kansas, out of District 3.
And that list will grow as we add. We try to not bite off more than we can chew. The reason why we don't just go after every single member of Congress at once is because then we'll get 15 meetings in a week and we literally can't get to them all. So you will hear us say that a lot, who we're currently focusing on. These tend to be states where we don't have a strong LEC presence. We may have members. We are probably reaching out to them or will be reaching out to them, but in many cases, they aren't the right constituent. Because our asks right now are small business based, it's going to tend to be a business owner that we're looking for. If you are a small business owner and you'd love to sit on one of these calls and tell your story, it's not hard. You literally just have to say what you've been through. You can even be pissed off. I mean, it's all fair game. They work for you. They're your elected officials. So we just want you to come in and tell your story. So if you're that person that would be willing to do that, throw it into the chat and we'll collect those names. And definitely when there's a need for your member of Congress, we'll call on you. I want to skip it back over after thanking you all for keeping your keeping your sleeves rolled up. Thank you in advance. We certainly do here. There's a couple other key members of the government affairs team that are not on the panel today, but I want to give a shout out to Dewan Stroud in New York, to our fearless leader, Isaac Rothwell, the founder of the organization, who still has a presence in his state in Indiana, as well to Andy in Colorado, who has more hats than anyone should ever have to wear. You guys have heard from him a lot, and let me tell you, he's out there slugging it in Colorado, and is a key figure for us on this team as well. So thanks to all of you, government affairs folks, and to our friends out there in events world. We are not done fighting, and we hope you aren't either. And I'll turn it back to Nancy at that point, or Ivory, who just popped on.
Well, we have a few questions in the Q&A. Dwayne, the first one's actually from Anthony, directed at you. Is there any language in SVOG that will provide money to venues that do host shows to put on new shows, almost like working capital or cash to kickstart hosting events?
I would need some verification of what shows to produce shows means. Do you mean, Anthony, do you mean you can throw this in the chat if it's faster. Do you mean like a trade show about shows? I'm confused.
And then the next question is from Kate in California. Have any other states had adjustments to guidelines for their state after the CDC and Biden statement about not wearing masks outside?
Oregon did. We went backwards. How's that for irony? I can't speak for the others. Chris and Wendy?
Yeah, so Minnesota's, not in great shape either. We kind of had a bit of an increase. Now it's coming down a little bit, but it's not great. I did specifically ask the Department of Health on a call a couple of weeks ago if things did spike back up, if they are going to close. And at that point, they said they have no plans to. So I think they're trying to stay open, even with increases. So we'll see.
I'll tell you what, if anybody wants to put in the chat, if they've seen their state make adjustments based on last Friday's CDC changes, that would be great. I can tell you, actually, I was a little bit flippant about Oregon. They did, at the same time they shut us down, they are also saying, but go ahead and do stuff outdoors. In fact, they changed the limitations from 50 outdoors to 100. And that's in line with CDC. So I guess I should be fair and point out that while they shut everything down inside, they are allowing slightly more outside. So I guess that's a little positive.
Anthony is no longer on the call.
Anthony's not on the call. I'm talking to Anthony later about a issue in Atlantic City. So I'll take it up then.
Yeah, I think his question is really more around, is there limitations in the money? What if you get grants through SVOG, are there certain things you can and can't use that money for?
Only if that money would put you into an activity for your business that would make you no longer qualify in the first place. Like if you use the money to turn yourself into a wedding venue, take out your stage, take out your lighting rig, take out your fixed seating, I think they'd frown on that. But it's really for all operating costs.
So you can use it to promote a new show if you want to try to get a new show up and running.
That's actually what they want you to do. Yeah. You actually have to promise that you're going to stay in business when you take this thing. Their intent is to keep you open.
Mm-hmm.
So that was the last call in Q&A, and I don't see anything else in the chat. I have responded to a few folks. If anybody does want to be connected to the government affairs team for constituent calls with members and their staff, please just email govask@liveeventscoalition.org. I put our email address in the chat box, and I'll connect you with everyone. In that case, I think we can hand it back over to Nancy to close this out.
There we go. Come on, none of you guys said, Nancy, you're on mute. We either do a really good job of sharing information with you guys, or you just don't want to ask us any questions, because I'm always really impressed that a room full of type A human beings, because you must be a type A human being to be in this industry, don't have more questions. So I'm going to take it that we're giving you the information that you are looking for. But what I'm going to ask you to do is make sure that you tell us, are there other topics of information you would like to hear on these calls? As we've all said, legislation moves slow. So sometimes we feel like every couple of weeks we get on and we kind of tell you all the same thing. And it's probably not as comforting as you might want it to be. And we will continue to update you all on a regular basis. But what are some other topics that as our industry you want to talk about and what you want us to bring forth to share with you on these calls? We know there are lots of questions about SVOG and we try to answer those as best we can. And specific questions, but please let us know. Also, keep us posted on things outside of this particular call that are impacting you and that you need us to either think about, look into, or direct you somewhere where we know somebody can help you. We can only be as good a resource as we understand what the needs are and what you guys are looking for. And we know that we are an advocacy group and that our main focus is on legislation. But as I said, this is an organization that is going to be here. I will tell you this, long after I leave this industry. And as I'm older than everybody on this call, that may not be as long away as somebody who just started, but it's going to be here for a long time. And the only way that we will remain strong and grow as an industry is with people's input. My goal or my hope for what will come out of this, along with relief funds this long year, is an elevation of the respect of the professionals in this industry, so that when you go to someone and you offer them your bid, they don't look at you and go, you can't be that expensive. I could do that. No, you can't. You can try, but you can't. And I'd like to see you when you're done, because you'd look a hot mess, because you'd be absolutely overwhelmed by all of it. So there are all sorts of things that we hope will happen from what we are doing and what we will continue to do. But your input is valuable. Your membership is critical. And if you have, I want you all to make sure that you're going to the website to find about the affinity programs that have signed on to support our members and to offer special and unique pricing for the things that are there. If there's something that's missing that you may have a connection to or you think would be a great affinity program, please let me know. This is the only way that we get better. And we do, as we talked about today, we do sometimes forget. We do this every single day, so we really do know what's going on. And we forget sometimes that you guys don't. And so it may feel like we are not doing anything. I will tell you one thing. The government affairs team, the 3 that are on this call, and those who are not, work this as if it is a full-time job. And I'm not exaggerating. They are on working 30 to 40 hours and more a week. It takes a village, it takes tenacity, it takes patience, and it takes drive. And I want to thank all of them for taking on what is a monster job. That is not to say that other elements within the organization aren't, but this one is the most critical at the moment, and I can't imagine not working with any of them. So thank you to our government affairs team. Thank you to you all. And please continue to let us know what's going on in your state. If you have reopening information, if you have vaccination information, anything, all of that is critical information. And with that, I would like you to practice kindness and empathy. And Ivory just popped on, which means it looks like there's a question.
Yeah, if you could just answer, could you explain to everyone what an affinity program is? Because it's something that I also had to learn about when I joined the LEC.
So affinity programs are when organizations will provide, primarily nonprofits, with special deals for members. So if any of you are members of other organizations like NACE or ILEA, they offer things like furniture rental houses or other types of event-specific needs, rental cars, things of that nature. And they'll get special pricing, staples, things of that nature. What we did was we purposely went after affinity programs that really affect us as humans more than as tools for our industry. So ours include bookkeeping services, health insurance, mental health programs, memberships at BJ's, virtual assistants. There are more, I just can't think of them. So what an affinity program is that the organization is and LEC have created this affinity together. And because of who we are, our members are receiving a better price than you would if you were not a member of the organization. I hope that explains it. Ivory, did that make sense?
Yes, thank you.
Thank you. Again, this is the time when sometimes it is hard, but to dig deep and to remember that empathy and kindness go really far, and that we never know what is going on in somebody else's life. And that we all have come together in a most unfortunate manner, but we have built a stronger community. And I don't want that community to go anywhere. I want us to continue to support one another. I want us to be empathetic to each other. I want us to be kind. That does not mean that we're all going to be perfect all the time. But if you lead your life with kindness and you lead your life with empathy, I think you're a step ahead of the game. So thank you. Go forth, have an amazing weekend. It's Thursday, right? Yes, have an amazing weekend. And again, you know, if you need any of us, we're here. And we're here for you. So without further ado, we're going to give you back 18 minutes of your day from our 1 hour call. I believe, do we have office hours open after this? Okay. So for any of you that have specific questions related to government affairs, the office hours will start at 4 o'clock. And again, you know where I am. Thank you. Have a wonderful, wonderful day.